Gentlemen, great to see you. Sorry, it's not a job interview. It looks a bit... Oh, by the way, thanks to DEYA Brewary for looking after us tonight. It's quite good. It's quite good. Just to kind of get things rolling, obviously, I do watch a lot of football, and I've been watching a lot of football since the mid-1960s, to be honest.
But most of that's Arsenal.
Say again?
Most of that's Arsenal.
Yeah, most of that, well, you'd be surprised actually. I've been watching Cheltenham a long time. Because when we moved out, I've been down in this neck of the woods for like 20 odd years. And I started following the club when Wardy was manager because he was a mate. And I got the bun. I have only been a season ticket holder more recently. But what I was going to say was I've watched a lot of football and I still know absolutely nothing about the game, obviously.
You're a referee?
Don't you start referee. So I'll have a row with you about referees later. I won't waste everybody's time with that. And what proves to me that I know absolutely nothing about football is Saturday before last, I watched us get dumped out of the cup by Alf Church. The atmosphere around the ground weren't great. And I go back on the Tuesday night, Gloucester Senior Cup or whatever it's called, Cheltenham Town, club from exactly the same level, and that's a bloody struggle, to be honest. We nicked the 1-0. So you're thinking, away to Ipswich? Oh. So, absolutely. So, there am I didn't go to Ipswich for professional reasons. I was down at the Memorial Ground watching Bristol Rovers play Fleetwood. I could call it a scouting mission, really. Of course, they score, Ipswich score after about 7-8 minutes, and I'm thinking, and then Broomy equalises. I don't know what happened in the rest of the game with the men. I'm just watching the minute by minute. Good one all with Ipswich. So, my only question, all the other questions coming from the floor, obviously, but my only question, and please, you can't say I don't know, because if you say I don't know, then we're all in trouble, is how does that happen? That Alf Church beat us in the FA Cup, and then we go up to Ipswich. And to be fair, if Dan had got on the end of that one, at 1-1, and we'd gone 2-1 up, I'd have fancied us. How does it happen? Sean, how does it happen? How does it happen?
Can I give you the answer you don't want? I don't know. No, I think that's why everyone loves the game of football. Like, you never know what's around the corner.
Didn't actually love Alf Church.
I think the Cheltenham fans, the Alf Church one, and ourselves as well, as players and staff, is obviously a hard one to take. But like you said, going away at a club as big as Ipswich and getting a result was unbelievable. Yeah, so I can't put my finger on why. It's just maybe the hard work that we do, the preparation, and yeah, no, it paid us back again.
It did indeed, but the hard work, Wade, how do you... Does getting a point at Ipswich come out of losing to Alf Church in a funny sort of way, or is it just...
No, the point at Ipswich comes from the likes of Longy chucking themselves in the way of everything that got thrown at them. I know it's not what we want to hear, but things like the Alf Churches are the reason why everyone loves football so much. It's not very nice being on the end of it, but it is what makes it the best game in the world. Unfortunately, we had to swallow the pill this time. Hopefully next time it'll be us.
Yeah, hopefully. Did you after Alf, because it was quite a different team against Ipswich as opposed to against Alf Church. Was there stuff that Alf Church made you think, do you know, I'm going to try something different here? I'm going to,
No, we didn't do anything different. Nothing different in the prep. We made some changes at Ipswich. Some of them were enforced because we had 1 or 2 injuries, 1 or 2 niggles. So, no, in terms of how we prepped for Alf Church and Ipswich, absolutely no different. 4 weeks prep. I said to the lads before, and I said to the lads afterwards, there's a gap between us and Alf Church. Alf Church will overperform because it's their cup final. It'll be the best done. I bet. Alf Church will overperform. It's their cup final, so the gap will be a little bit less. If we underperform for whatever reason, the gap gets smaller again. We did underperform, so the gap went from there to there. And then you don't give yourself any leeway. If things go against you, you could be on the end of an upset. And we did, one or two things went against us, but we didn't hit our level to give ourselves a nice cushion to ride it, and we're on the end of a shock.
How did you feel watching that game? What, is it? I mean, 'cause obviously you go. I absolutely take on board all that about levels and you've got to be acting. But is there, whether you like it? I mean, you know, you look at the Man City game and you go, and I just wonder if mentality does come into it. You know, you look at when you're finding players, you're looking at what they can do, but you're also looking at what kind of characters they are.
Yeah, mentality comes into it. You can flip it for the Man City game, and obviously that was massive for us. We performed at an unbelievable level. Man City, possibly the best team in the world. They weren't
second best at the moment.
Sorry, Tom. You know, they weren't 10 out of 10 that day.
Yeah.
If they'd been 10 out of 10 that day, they ended up. I think they put 9 on. Who did they put 9 on that season in the Carling Cup?
Oh,
someone like
yeah.
they put 9 on someone in the Carling Cup. They'd been 10 out of 10. So Man City were a little bit below their level. We were above ours. One or two things went for us. You know, toes edge one off the line. We scored a good goal. We're 10 minutes away from having a massive upset.
It was only their bench that won it. If you couldn't have subs.
Yeah, the bench wasn't bad, to be fair.
Yeah, you could say that.
1 or 2.
What do you reckon, Mick? What's the...
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're watching the Alf Church game, and you know, I wish I would have been in place, but I think it was over the line, and so obviously it is disappointments, but you have to just, you know, one game don't define you, does it? You know, I mean, it doesn't define your season, does it define you as an individual? Yes, it's disappointments. Yes, it's hard to take. But then, like you say, you know, we go away to Ipswich and probably nobody give us a chance, where internally we always feel we give ourselves a chance. And you're like, wow, how did that happen? But that is football, you know what I mean? You have to be graceful in defeat, which we were against Alchurch, and we have to take it, we dust ourselves down, and then, like I say, it don't define you, you've got to go on to the next one. You know, and you can't lose perspective in terms of what we all won an FA Cup run, we all wanted, you know, and the biggest disappointment against Man City that you weren't there to see it. Do you know what I mean? Because the fans weren't allowed in at the time. Because them last 10 minutes you might have made a big difference. But our objectives still haven't changed from June, July. You know, we know where we need to be at the end of the season. So yeah, we took a little punch on the nose, but it can't define us for the rest of the season.
No, absolutely. I did actually wander up to directors after the game against our church, and it was, I don't know why, but you know, there was some stuff after the game. It was a little bit toxic. The atmosphere was a little bit toxic after. People who clearly have they're angry about their own lives. They're not angry, you know, they come to church and get angry about the team. But and I just, for some reason, I wanted to come up. I wanted to see you, David, because I will never forget the night at Macclesfield, where I happened to be that night, where Gary Johnson got the sack, which was just a horrible, horrible night for all sorts of reasons. And it was just I found it very reassuring, actually, in the director's office, because I just felt that there was kind of steadiness and a sense of perspective, and do you know what I mean? The kind of thing which in hindsight should never have happened at Macclesfield. There was no danger of that. Do you know what I mean? It just felt reassured by that. Do you get what I'm saying? And then I think that's a great thing to have at the club. People are steady, people are patient, people who don't lose sight of the longer, you know, we've decided this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it. You know, funny enough, Arsenal were another case in point with Arteta. So it's very much a similar kind of, and do you consciously do that, or is that just the group that's on the board at the moment and it just happens like that?
Well, we were all disappointed, of course we were disappointed after that game. But you have to bear in mind that our primary aim this season is to stay in League One, and to do as well as we can in League One. And we've got to focus on that. And I think that what we all felt was, it was a bloody nose and all disappointed, and there's the financial implications and all the rest of it. But you can use a defeat like that as an opportunity to improve and to motivate yourselves. I'm not just talking about the players away, I'm talking about all of us. We've all got to do a little bit better. We've all got to improve and use it as an incentive to do better. Certainly, I went down to the training ground during the few days in between the two games, the Church game, the Ipswich game, and I found that the lads were really doubly determined and together, and went down at breakfast time, and they were all together, and I was really reassured by that as well. And I think as a club, all of us, the fans, the board, the management team, players, you've got to stick together. You can't have division amongst yourselves at all at any time if you really want to succeed. And we've got we all know, and I'm not going to harp on about it, but we've got one of the lowest budgets. But what we lack in money, we have got in spirit, I think, and we've got it in togetherness, and that's what we've got to really work on. And I think the boys did that and proved that with Ipswich.
100%. Good. Thanks. That leaves me none the wiser, but happy days. Yes. So it's Paul, isn't it?
Yeah.
Paul's got a microphone. Stick your hand up if you've got a question, and Paul will come to you. Yes. So we can all hear the question.
You said the game was the final season, which I agree is the case in point.
That's what it is.
It's not.
So you said the game doesn't define our season, which I completely agree with. Does it define January in terms of what we can spend in the budget, which may not be available to improve on the squad for the rest of the season?
Yeah.
No, I'll answer it because them decisions are already made. I think the one clear message I hope has come across over the last, 3, 4, 5 years is we don't make any emotional decisions in terms of the transfer market. I think Michael's been quite public in saying that over the years. So we know our targets already. Them conversations have been had already in terms of where we are financially. They were done probably September, October time. So we know where we are. But no, getting knocked out of the cup doesn't have any bearing on what we're going to do in January. We know where we are, the finances are in place, and we know the targets that we're looking for. Now, if a Manchester City would have become available and you get to that stage, then it means I can squeeze a few more quid out of clients, that's all it means. But yeah, no, their decisions are already made, so we're well on track. We don't, 99% of the time, signings are emotionally done. We're usually planning a window in advance. I think if you look at last year's January, I think in the first 8 days, was it? 9 days, we'd done all our business. We were done complete. We'd signed 3 or 4, and the only one that came in, I think, were late, was after we sold Chris Hussey, and then I brought Ben Williams in. So yeah, no, it doesn't make any difference.
Just to expand on that a little bit as well, what I would say from the board's point of view is that we always go through a process. So at the end of the season, going into the next season, obviously we're looking at what the totality of the budget will be, but we also try to plan ahead for what we might be able to do in the January window. And certainly, so far as the budgeting is concerned, we don't budget on any money coming in from cup competitions. Clive is always very rigid about that, and quite rightly so. You can't speculate that we might or might not pick up some money along the way with prize money. So the money that's coming in, anything we get from cup runs, is in the nature of a bonus. And we determined, we had a board meeting probably mid-October when we decided what we could afford for January. Micky's been made aware of that. We plan ahead and work within those parameters.
Good, so that's for an hour on a free.
Yeah.
Good. No, if you can get Ryan Jackson at the drop of that, mate, there's absolutely no problem.
Yeah.
Mind you, you might not fit in.
Doesn't
Yes.
press. Doesn't press Ronaldo. Yeah.
No, exactly. Yes.
Obviously, we've had some great loan players over the sort of last year, couple of years. Obviously, Callum Wright, Keola Tete, Matty Pollock last year. Obviously, Taylor Perry and Caleb Taylor this year. Is there ever any consideration after sort of close to the end of the season when you ever try to get a loan player back in, either again on loan or as a permanent player? Like we see Christian Norton this year, who's on loan for the back half of last year, and then Jordan Free this year.
Callum came back.
Yeah. Had a few, haven't we? I think that's where Micky will probably able to give you a fuller answer on that. But I think that's, from my point of view, from my perspective, one of the things that I think we can be proud of as a club is how many people do experience the environment and then want to return. So I'm not sure we would have got Callum right back if he hadn't experienced it before and saw what we were about and enjoyed it. Probably the same in this window, you could say that about Taylor Perry and Dan Lundu, where there were plenty of teams in for them, but I think because they knew us, we had a leg up. Owen Evans came back, Christian Norton came back. So I'd like to think that speaks well of us as a club and what we do, and that the players come in and buy into what we're doing. With regards to do we try and get them back, I think it all depends on circumstances. I think there'll be some, Micky said, there'll be some that will be beyond us. So I'd be very surprised if we're able to get Caleb Taylor at the end of the year. And then it's if they're available, other clubs, it's like Callum Wright. Yeah, we'd love to have brought Callum Wright back, but Callum's gone on to the Championship, Keon's gone to the Championship, Matty Pollock, so yeah, we're always assessing the players, but I think sometimes it's difficult to get the loans back because the very nature of the quality of loans we get in mean that they're usually very, very good players who are looking to use us as a platform to develop their career higher up the pecking order.
Yes.
The players that if you need to bring in new talent in January, presumably they will be loans because we've got no money for anything else. Would you have to release players to accommodate them?
Is that a budget question?
So just in terms of loans, so at the moment on paper we've got 5 loans. Okay. Now, obviously I can't go too much devil in the detail in terms of, but the one thing Michael has always said is that there's a plan in place and we're always one window ahead. So last January, how many loans did we have? First time, we had 6 loans. We've never done it before. The 6th loan was a lad called Jamie Soul from West Brom. So West Brom phoned me in January and asked could we take Jamie Soul. I explained the situation to him, so I did it as a favour for West Brom. So I did a favour to West Brom because I wanted Caleb Taylor. So it's a lot easier going back to West Brom to say I need a favour now. Bristol City came to us and asked us for a favour with James Taylor because he's a young, so it's a development loan. So what you might think is, why have we signed a lad? He hasn't played a lot of games. Sometimes clubs want players to go out on what they call a development loan. So James Taylor's a development loan. So there's a plan in place because I want someone from Bristol City. So it's a case of that's the way it works. So we've got 4 loans in layman's terms. Okay, so we still have another loan. So we will be looking to bring another loan in January. Yeah, we will be.
So you don't
How
have
many
to,
loans can you put out?
Only 5, just 5. And what I would say is, in terms of what's available, if there's a permanent available in the window and there's a transfer fee involved, then we have the budget to do that. The budget is given to me to make that decision in terms of whether it's a loan, a permanent. So it all depends what the market is. So at the moment, we are looking at 1 or 2 potentially. We are looking at potentially trying to do 1 on a permanent, which will be a transfer fee. But we're not the only ones in for them, so we will see whether we can get it over the line or not.
Can you do a loan with a view to buy it?
But yeah, we could do that,
Yeah.
but we would rather do like last year. So, and like I say, there's always a plan in place. Like last year, we let Chris Hussey go, and everyone's moaning, there's uproar going on. Why we let him go? Because he's been absolutely brilliant for us. But we replaced him with a 22-year-old who's done really well for us. So, you know, we have to get the timing right when we have to let people go. We got what we thought was a good fee for the person of his age, and then we replaced him with somebody who's a lot younger and a resale value. So, if there is people in January to be that we can buy, then we will do it.
Can I just ask Sean, because obviously bring in loans, and obviously there's ability, will they fit with the groups? But you look at the loans, and I just look at those lads. I could be wrong, but I look at those lads, and Callum Wright's a perfect case in point. They really enjoy playing football for Cheltenham Town and kind of being at this club. And I just wonder, from a player's point of view, whether that's something you guys actually consciously, you know, whether it's, I don't know, the way you welcome people, the way you spend time with them. I know the idea is to get them based in Cheltenham, and you know what I mean? But from a player's point of view, particularly as club captain, whether you make that effort to go, come on, we'll look after you here.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really good environment to come and work. There's no what kind of course there, but there's no like
Egos.
muppets or whatever you want to call them, around the ground. Like everyone's pulling in the same direction. It's a real honest group. And I think it just shows the fact that Callum wanted to come back. TP is back this year.
Dan as well.
Dan
got injured first time round, and he's.
And, it's a really good environment to work in. And I think that's obviously we're doing well as well. That obviously helps when you're doing well as a team. They want to come back. But no, it's a really good group.
And you just let that work, or do you make a conscious?
No, there's definitely things that we work on as a group, whether that's from the staff, certain values we have. Obviously, there's a leadership group there of more senior lads that we try and conduct ourselves the right way and sort of lead by example.
Tom, I think that that principle transcends the club really, because you know we have a lot of people that come back and are welcome as former players and managers. They come upstairs and I mean, a guy you mentioned earlier on, Wardy, he came back 2 or 3 times and he always said what a welcoming club it is. And I think the whole environment, you know, down at the training ground, the caterers down there, they're sort of part of a Cheltenham Town family, and I think that we try to sort of foster that through, you know, everyone around the ground, whether they're on the turnstiles or stewards, they're in the boardroom, they're doing the hospitality, and I think it's vital for us. It's one of the things that I spoke about earlier. You know, we may not have the most money, but we can certainly foster, you know, the right environment, because it doesn't cost anything to be friendly.
No, 100%. And I mean, I guess the reverse of that is actually, you know, people go, oh, we haven't got much money. We have home games probably 3,500. You know, 3,500 more than that. But you know, so there's not that many people in the world who care about Cheltenham Town. But those of us who do, we really care a lot. Do you know what I mean? There's a kind of connection that if you're with 100 million eyeballs around the world watching some Premier League club, that connection isn't there. In fact, that connection isn't of any importance or relevance to the football clubs. The eyeballs is what matters, because that's what gets them sponsorship deals, which is what pays the wages. Here, what pays the wages is us coming to watch. And it makes for a great, it's really important.
But we try and be this. One of the first things we said to the lads was, don't concentrate on what we haven't got. We concentrate on what we have got.
Yeah.
And we know that we can't
go to Ipswich at the weekend and it's bells and whistles. But there are a million things that don't cost a penny that we can be the best at. Let's be the best. Let's be the best football club in the league at things that don't cost a penny. So in terms of work ethic, timekeeping, togetherness, spirit, all those things that don't cost a penny, let's be the best at them. That's how we make up the edge. That's how we make up the gap, by being together, having a good collective, staff, everybody going over and above. And I think that's our identity as a football club.
Yeah, and that spread beyond the training ground and the dressing room. I'm sure, you know, people look and you think about what we've got. People don't turn around and go, oh well, you know, we haven't got the money, or we haven't got this, or we haven't got that. God, I love what we've got. I love what we've got. I mean, moments like last season, Sunderland, they bring Jermaine Defoe off the bench to try and get back in the game. That's Cheltenham. You go, never mind what we ain't got.
You should tell lads, his son player Jermaine.
It's fantastic.
It's unbelievable. He was so good. He came second in the Player of the Year at Bournemouth when I was there.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do about half an hour of Wade Elliott's playing career. Yes.
Got one in here.
Yes.
Can we have a bit of honesty about what's been going on? I mean, as I went to Ipswich, I mean, we were lucky to get a draw because they hit the post and all that. We only had 2 shots on target and they had like 10, 20 actually. Our church was unforgivable. And we're about to come out for 4-0 at half time, and then he made no substitution until 10 minutes from the end. Can you explain me why that happened?
Exeter.
No. Yeah, Exeter.
Exeter or Bristol Rovers?
Exeter. It was 7-0.
Yeah.
4-0 at half time.
Yeah, so I think it was. Yeah, so it was 5 at half time, Exeter.
Yeah, 5. Yeah.
And I think I've been honest with you. I'll be the first to hold my hands up and say I'll make mistakes, and I will make mistakes. I'll make lots of them. But I think what I am good at, and what my playing career shows, is that I'll go away, I'll reflect, I'll learn, I'll work hard, I'll get better. So Exeter, if I'm being really honest, I looked at the teams the next day, and I think we made 11 changes, 10 or 11 changes, and it was probably a team that had been put together and had a lot of work, a lot of prep, 2 or 3 games into the season. So did I send them out a little bit undercooked? Probably, because when I looked at all the other teams, they'd made about 4 or 5 changes, and obviously with the 5 subs, they could manage the minutes of players that way. So I think in hindsight, I probably got that wrong. With regards to the substitutions, went in at half time at 5. Went a bit, it was full on Mike Bassett, teacups. But my exact words to the players were, I didn't think it was, I'm not bringing people off the bench to get the 11 that played that first half out of the mess. So I think it was incumbent on them to go out and produce a better performance in the second half and show a bit more pride in the second half than they did in the first. So, in answer to your question, that's why I didn't make any subs at half time against Exeter. I generally, if I'm brutally honest, at 5-0 I thought the game had gone. I didn't think we were going to come back and win the cup tie. So I thought, that was the decision I made at the time. Do I send on an Alfie and a Dan, or do I send those back out to try and get a bit of respectability? Alf Church, yeah. Listen, I can't sit here in front of you in all good faith and honesty and say I'm happy with the Alf Church performance, or I think we're all disappointed in that. With regards to Ipswich, I would have to disagree with you that we were lucky. I thought we were superb. I think you're right. They had the majority of the game. I think we had 2 or 3 shots on target. I think they had 4 shots on target, or our goalkeeper made 4 saves. If you look at if you look at all their chances, so all week we worked on boxing up the middle of the pitch, showing them to the outside, and we did loads of work on defending crosses, crossing positions, defenders filling spaces, midfielders recovering. So all their chances, bar none, came from coming wide, balls in the box, and I think they had 25, 26 openings. I think they had 4 shots on target from them. So I would agree with you on taking board to point about Exeter and Alvechurch. I would agree to disagree with you on Ipswich. I think you're doing us a little bit of a disservice saying we were lucky in that instance.
It's funny, isn't it, that Exeter, that was a very weird evening. But what I just answered about Alvechurch and then going and get across Walker Road, I could have said the same about getting gubbed by Exeter at home and then going and winning 1-0 down there. Do you know what I mean? You do feel there is a character.
No, well, listen, I know it sounds twee, we're custodians of the football club. And you'll be here, you were here a long time before me. I hope to be here for a long time myself, but I'm sure you'll be here a long time after me. And as much as you care about it and you're invested in it, I would like to think you can see in, when we do go away to Exeter, I think you can, or we do go away to Ipswich, you can see it in the players' performances. We do care. It does hurt. We won't always get it right. We will make mistakes. We won't always be at our best level. I won't always pick the right team or get the tactics right. But one thing I can promise you is we are giving you your best every minute of every day. What you see, what comes out on a Saturday, is a week's worth of effort of us giving you everything we've got. And it does, Lummy touched on it earlier about the group, the character of the group. They're as good a group as you could wish to get. And they do buy in, they're all in. We've talked about the loans a little bit. I've been a player, I've been at clubs where loans come in, they've got their own agenda. And they can't, every footballer is self-employed, they've got their own individual agenda, and the loans come in, they want to use us to progress. You get that. But I think what's special about the football club is even the loans, when they come in, they buy in, and they're committed, and they care, and they're invested. And generally we do. It hurts us, the Exeter hurts us, and the Alvechurch hurts us. All we can do is go out, hopefully you can see when we go back to Exeter, or we go back to Ipswich, that's our opportunity to show you on the pitch that it hurts us as much as it hurts you.
Yeah, I've got one here.
Yeah. All right. Just with a question, going back on the Alvechurch game, do you think you got your tactics wrong on that one? Because when I was handed the team sheet and I saw you had Lloydie up front on his own, he was not having a good season of scoring. Do you think it was too much for him? When considering we were playing Alvechurch, you only have the one lone striker, and it's not really his game, is it? And you changed it, fair play. Disagree with my friend earlier about Ipswich. I think the Watford fans are going on very happy, aren't they? They were similar, but yeah, playing Lloydie up front, should you have had 2 against Alvechurch?
Yeah, I think we changed it after about, I think we brought Dan on after about half an hour, didn't we? And changed it.
You had an injury, didn't you?
Yeah.
You've seen it was wrong, to be fair, yeah.
Yeah, well, I thought we needed to get down on the pitch, to be honest.
But you've got to be careful.
But with regards to, sorry.
You don't want to rest him because of his groin with it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we have to be a little bit. Listen, we probably haven't had a fully fit Alfie all season, if we're being really honest. Which means we become a little bit more reliant on the other forwards. So Dan becomes more important to us then. So you do have to be a little bit more circumspect with him and think, can we risk him, can we push him as much as we would like? So if he breaks down as well, then we become really short. With regards to tactically, I thought we created enough opportunities to win the game.
Let them score and strikers and stuff like that.
So you look at, I'm glad you asked actually, because I think there's been times where we played, when you talk about playing well up front, generally, we've played a 3-5-2, haven't we? We played 2 up front. I think most people would recognise that's our go-to, that's what we there's been games this season when we played, you'd call it one up front, I would call it three up front. So we played,
the other one was coming up to
yeah, we played the two just off them. And I think there's a perception of that. I think there is a perception of that it's a negative formation, which I wouldn't agree with.
We rely on them supporting, don't we?
Yeah. So and it's how you play it. So Chelsea play that system. I think the two top scorers in our league, Ipswich and Plymouth, play that system. We generally use that system when we want to be really aggressive in our press, and when we want to really get after teams and go after teams, like Bolton. So we played that shape against Bolton because it let us really get after them. We played it against Morecambe because we could get after their 3 7/2 and do the same. And we did it because we think we can get 5 people on the back line if we do that. If we push the wing backs high and we've got front 3, we can be really aggressive and work behind. So, yeah, I understand. To go back to your question, I can see why you'd get the team sheet against Southchurch and think it's negative. But I promise you, the way we set it up and the way we plan, the way we perceive it, we think of that as an attacking formation and getting 3 at the top end of the pitch rather than 2. And that's the way we've tried to play it. And I think if you certainly look at James Olayinka, I think Links we got him more advanced. I think Links had a couple of assists now. And in terms of chances, I think
a bit different in playing in the Arsenal Academy.
Yeah, it is, but
he needs time. The young lads want time.
Yeah, he does. He needs time. He needs support. And he needs the environment. But we've got some.
I mean, to be fair, he's been out playing in the Football League and the National League. Right?
He's had a couple of runs in Southend and Northampton.
For the defence.
No, I'm just saying.
Somebody actually told me he was scoring quite regularly. They were surprised he was let go.
But yeah, no, I think we've got some. We think we've got some talented kids.
Yeah.
That we think if we nurture them properly and they get the right opportunity and the right coach, and they can develop into really good players for us, but also good assets for the football club.
You're going to have to accept ups and downs, haven't you? You've had 6 or 7 new players come in, and you're going to get.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, we've got to understand ups and downs. We haven't got to accept them.
No, I know. Yeah.
So you can't. I'm not saying we're accepting.
No, I know. Yeah, because it's you're going to get it. Because
Yeah, but we understand. Got to understand it. Try and dig into where it's come from, and keep chipping away at them as a group and as individuals. And can we iron that out? Can we find a level of consistency? Say again, sorry.
It's up to the old men at the side of the ground.
Old men, I'm only 27.
Listen,
you could be in right trouble now.
Listen, I've got to say, while he's here, he's been absolutely top draw. So as a captain, as a player, he's been different class. And when we talk about the environment and the group and how good it is, Longie's a big part of being a custodian of that.
Yeah, captain you can look up to, yeah.
Yes.
Can I carry on this theme of formations, what your preferred one is? Because I think to echo the point that's just been made, I thought against Alfchurch, we didn't seem very positive, and we had that Christmas tree formation with Roy up front. And against Ipswich, we had Dan and Christian, trying to get behind them, running the legs off them, and we were more positive. I thought we did get a battering, but we were heroic. I thought our defence was, obviously magnificent. Although a couple of the players that stood out for me were, I thought James was really, played much better than he had done in the previous games for us. And that sort of game suited him. So I quite liked the position he was, linking through. But the other player I thought did well for us was Broomy. And, against Alfchurch, he was sort of trying to get up front. And I don't think that's his natural position. When he's playing wide, the right-hand side, he can be devastating. He scored that great goal on Saturday. And, you talk about pegs and, squares and holes and all the rest of it. And Bruny's position on Saturday, I thought, suited him down to the ground. But we did seem, even when we didn't have the ball, I thought we were, in the first half, quite positive. We were looking to get at them. I thought in the second half, we obviously got a bit tired and struggled a bit. And I was wondering then what your strategy would be to get the ball from defence when we had the ball, to play it up and create chances. Sorry, that's a bit garbled. That wasn't really the... if you've heard a question there, I don't think I tend...
You are... There's a few in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
You asked me, in the middle of it, you said, what's my strategy? What's my
preferred formation?
I think we've, as a football club, for the past, certainly my time in, we play 3-5-2, we've recruited to that system, we understand that system, we've got players that play it really well. We do tweak the shape of the midfield sometimes. Sometimes we'll play a 2 and a 1, or we'll play a 3, or however you want to tweak it. But regardless, I think more important than formation is how you want to, is the tone you want to send your team out with. And I mean, you can ask Longy. Every game, and I understand it won't always look like it because there's 11 of the opposition that try and stop what you worked on, and footballers are human beings, and they'll have a bad sleep and they'll have bad days at work, same as everybody else. But every game, I can promise you, we go out to be on the front foot, to be aggressive when we've got the ball, to try and play forward, make things happen, get behind teams. And when we haven't got it, we try and be aggressive. We don't always go crazy gung-ho. There's times where we'll pick areas that we're going to be aggressive. But we do try and go out and be on the front foot aggressive in every game. I would say the one game where I came away from that was probably Burton away. And we went there off the back of, I did put it in some sort of context, the 2 games before, we went to Sheffield Wednesday and conceded 3, which can happen. Like Barry Bannon puts them in the top corner. We conceded 4 to Bristol Rovers. So I actually thought we played pretty well against Bristol Rovers, but we gave away 4 horrible goals. So we conceded 7 in 2 games. Our 2 away games before was Sheffield Wednesday and Aki, who had conceded in the first minute of both. So Burton, we went away, came away from it a little bit, and we went to be really solid and defensive and hard to beat. Never got out of that mindset. So for the whole 90 minutes, we didn't really get out of our 5, and we weren't aggressive. We weren't on the front foot, and I don't think we played to our principles. And I said to the lads afterwards, we'll never do that again. So we came away from what we wanted to be about.
But against Ipswich, you were more positive and aggressive, as you say. And then the week before against Alfchurch, who were a few leagues below us, we didn't see that. On the terraces, the team didn't seem to be set up to go forward at all. But against Ipswich, as I say, even though we were under so much pressure, I actually felt confident that if we could get the ball out, we would go places. And I wasn't surprised when we scored when we did, because I thought Rumi had that space on the right. And
we had, in flashes, we played some decent stuff at Ipswich. Second half, we obviously come under a lot of pressure, which you'd expect. They're a championship team, 25,000 people at home. That expectation pushing you on, you expect to come under a little bit of pressure. With regards to Alfchurch, I don't know I've answered it before, but we genuinely didn't approach it any differently. We set out to be aggressive, we set out to attack. I think, we get bundles and bundles of stats. So you can see our press against Alfchurch was quite aggressive. We made some opportunities, some chances. We weren't able to take them, and we were on the end of a horrible result. But with regards to the mindset and the approach from Ipswich to to our church wasn't massively different. Obviously, we expect to have more of the ball against it, our church. We worked on that, and we thought we'd be under the cosh a little bit at Ipswich, so we didn't go as gung-ho and we didn't have the ball. But we looked to be aggressive, and believe it or not, we looked to go and win. We do set out to win every game that we go for.
Yes, forgive me, I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to come at the back.
Thanks. Wade, I'll give you a break from talking about formations and things. I wanted to talk a word about the academy and how that's working or not at the moment. There just seems to be a huge gap between the academy and then getting those players through to the first team. Obviously, we get a good one like Armitage, and he gets pinched before he even really makes a first team appearance. And then we get players coming through who we hear about, and then they go out on loan and they seem to go very low down the pyramid, which is still a big gap between actually getting them into our first team, which I assume is the main thing about an academy, other than obviously nurturing that talent to eventually sell them on. So I'm just wondering what the sort of thinking is at the academy at the moment.
I think Micky's because in fairness to Micky, he's put a lot of things in place in the academy to try and address some of the things you're talking about. So Micky can probably fill you in on some of the work that's being done.
Yeah, so in terms of the academy, we've got an academy up to under 18, and then we've got the first team. So when I first came in, the gap between academy and first team is quite big because we haven't got 21s. The gap now is even bigger because we've gone into League One. So we set about 3 seasons ago now, I think it was, we need to bridge that gap. So what we did was we had a relationship with a Step 5 club, a Step 4 club, a Step 3 club and a Step 2 club. Okay, so we've got our own manager at Step 5, we had our own manager at Step 4, head coaches, managers, and then we've got links at Step 3, and then we've got Bath, who you know, Jerry was part of the football club, so we've got that link with Jerry. So we've got a pathway now for all our players. We put a lot of work into that. So you talk about Will Armitage, so Will was 16, so what we try and do is get our under 18s out into playing non-league football, and we'll pitch them at the level. So as an example, Callum Banks was playing at Evesham 2 years ago, then he's gone up to Bromsgrove. We put him into Eastleigh, where he's been for the last 3 months. We've recorded him now, and now he's going to play for Jerry at Step 2. Adelaide, who has played some games this year, we think, you know, he's done really well. Gone out to Cirencester, played 11 games, scored 10 goals. We've took him out of there, and now we're going to put a young lad called Jay Simpson into there, and Adelaide's gone to Step 3. So we're trying to massively close that gap. We want to try and produce, develop and sell our own, definitely. There's a lot of work going into the academy, and I think, you know, we've got some real gems in there that if the big clubs come calling, it's very difficult to hold them back. We know that, okay? So, but there's a lot of work gone into those players, and there is a plan in place for all of them now. You know, at the moment, if you look at, we've got George Lloyd, who's one of our own, Grant Horton, one of our own, who's injured, went out to Ireland, did really well, but come back injured, and he hasn't really been able to get going. We've got Callum Ebanks, Zach Guinan, who scored last week. So we are. You might think we're not looking. If you look at last year, 11. I think it was 11 players last year over the Checker Trade games made appearances. Do you know what I mean? So we look to. There is definitely a pathway now for our young players, and we want to do as much as we can. Like I say, we want to try and produce and develop that. In terms of the academy, Anton was here 10, 12, 13 years, and now he's moved on to Reading. P. Haynes was here for a number of years, now moved on to Southampton. So the academy now is getting real recognition, not only now for players but also our staff. You know, we've just brought Ashley Vincent back, who's obviously played for the club at under 18s. So the academy's in a really good place, and we've got some real good players, and we're quite excited over the next 2 to 3 years. You know, Cam Waters has made his debut this year, and we believe that some others over the next 12-18 months that you'll see as well. There's some real good talent in there.
Just on the back of that, maybe you have a point to make on this, David, as well. Just you mentioned Cam Waters.
Yeah.
So I was at an Arsenal game the other week, sitting next to a member of staff, under 18s manager actually. I sat down, he got his phone out, he went, "What's this geezer like?" He had film of Cam Waters' appearance against West Ham under 21s on his phone. Now, 5 years ago that ain't happening. It's not happening. Because they're going to Barcelona or Bayer Leverkusen or Brazil or wherever they're worldwide. Because of Brexit, you can't do that anymore. Is it a kind of threat to us that, because obviously those clubs would much rather take a chance on a lad at 15.5 and have to pay a pittance, rather than let him develop and then have to pay proper money when he's 19, 20 and has played, 60 or 70 games in League One. Is that a worry for, obviously we want to see our own playing for us, but that other side of it, that, it is the academy potentially is a way of
Yeah, I think the big thing you mentioned there was Brexit in terms of now, if you look at, there's a lot of the Premier League, the Cat 1 teams now are looking to buy from the Cat 3 clubs, Cat 2 and Cat 3, because what they're looking at is saying they can get good players now, because now if they want to go abroad, they're going to have this point system, which they don't qualify for.
Oh, absolutely.
So they're trying to hoover up now all the best talent locally. And listen, unfortunately, the way of the world now is when a Premier League club goes to a 16-year-old's house with an agent and sells a dream to them, it is difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of,
and even more difficult because they're doing it more often now.
Yeah, they're doing it more often now. So that is.
I did tell them that Cam was rubbish.
Yeah.
And he's so small he couldn't find a kid to fit. So
Yeah, but like, that is now where, if you look at our under 18s, 16s and 18s, we get a lot of the big clubs, Cat 1 clubs looking at our players because over the years we have done well. So we're in a really good place on that. But if they do come calling, and listen, the Will Armitage one was done really well. His mum and dad and the player asked as well, they thought it was the right thing for him. We looked at it and thought it was the right thing for us. So so it's as long as everybody.
How old was Will?
16. So Will was 16. He was a first-year scholar. They thought it was right for him. We thought it was right for us. So yeah, when the right opportunity comes for any of our players, we will make that judgment. When we sold Ben Tozer, we thought it was the right thing to do at that time. For that volume of money, for that age, and people then question, but that year, and I'm sure I might be wrong, but young player of the year was Matty Pollock who took his place. So, it was not bad business in terms of bank money. Ben was brilliant for us. We go in and bank it, and we get a player in that. Do you know what I mean? So it's if we're in terms of, we're a good place for loans and we're a good place for our own players, because if we have to sell them, we will do if it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Sorry. So obviously over the last couple of years, from a financial side, this one, we've seen the introduction of Kids for a Quid. As a general answer, would you say it's been a success so far? Because I think from the technical side it has been a success, but from the financials, do you think it's been successful and do you see it continuing?
Yeah, I think it will continue, if I'm honest. Obviously, the main driver on that is not by the very nature of the price to make a lot of money out of it. It's to encourage the youth to come to watch Cheltenham Town, and hopefully to be accompanied by parents who are also keen to come and join in and support the club. You'll have noticed that the games that we picked have been games that have been either attractive ones in the Papa John's Trophy, or some of the games where we're probably not expecting a huge following. So in terms of financial loss, if no disrespect to Morecambe, but if you've got Morecambe on a Tuesday night, you know very well that it's not going to be a full house. So by offering the opportunity for some youngsters to come in at a knockdown price, we're not really losing anything. And what I really want to see is, when you walk around the parks and the playing fields of Cheltenham, you want to see youngsters wearing Cheltenham Town shirts and coming along to Cheltenham Town, and that's why we do it. And we've done it. I think we had about 4 of those initiatives last season. We've got a similar number this season, and certainly, obviously it's a board decision at the end of the day each season, but I can see that being a regular thing moving forward, to continue to try and encourage the youth and to build bridges, build relationships with some of the youth teams around the place as well. That some of them come in large numbers in groups with their coaches and so on and so forth. And I think it's just all good for the club. It helps to grow us.
Yeah, I've got one here. One for Wade. You talked about being on the front foot. Does our goalkeeper time manage from minute 1? He was booked after, 25-30 minutes for time wasted on Saturday. Had the referee refed him before, or had he been got at? It's certainly where I sit, you get the groan when it gets the ball down, he then moves it, he then faffs around, you don't know whether it's going to freestone or where it's going. Then he waves the 2 defenders up the park and then punts it up, having wasted minute and a half of time. Is that deliberate time management?
No. No. So he did get booked after 20 something minutes the other day, which I thought was ridiculous. And even the fourth official term being commented, he went, that's a political one for the crowd. So no, we don't ask him to time waste. Listen, if we're winning in the last 10 minutes, I won't be asking him to go and sprint after the ball and get it back in play. But no, he's not. We're not asking him to time manage.
Yeah, question for Micky. Obviously we had an approach for you from them up the hill.
Nailsworth!
What are the main drivers for you to stay the better side of Gloucestershire, shall we say?
Yeah, so, good question. In all honesty, I was unaware of the approach. In these circumstances, you usually know what's going to happen. I was as surprised as anybody that they had made that approach. I spoke to David, who told me about it. Out of respect, I went and met him. I went and met them. I had a conversation with them and declined that approach. I think for me, on a personal level, the biggest driver for me is when I first came in, I think it was 2018 in the September. We were in the bottom 4, bottom 6 of League 2. And I remember the first transfer window where we were in the bottom 2 in September, and we signed Jordan Tilson from Exeter, Billy Walters from Northampton, Charlie Raglan from Oxford, and they were the loans that we were going for. And last year we had 5 loans from the Premier League. So in terms of the journey of where the club's gone, in terms of finishing 4th, winning a league title that's never been done before, the highest place finish last year, I've still got things before I either get kicked out or go that I want to achieve here, and I haven't done them yet. So there's still things for me on a personal level that I want to achieve here. Like Michael left in the summer when we had our best season in the club's history. I could have looked at that and gone, okay, this could be the right time for me, but like I say, I've still got things that I want to achieve here on a personal level. and that's my biggest driver. Until I achieve those, hopefully I get the time to do it. So yeah, that was why I didn't take it.
Well, you wouldn't want to miss these, would you?
No, of course. Of course. And to be fair, the board, have always backed me. I do have I have a really good relationship with Clive. I will tell you that. Me and Clive have got a really good relationship. He needs to keep hold of it and I want to spend it. But we do get on well and we always come up. We both want the same things, so I think in the 4 or 5 years we've been here, we've signed 2 or 3 players for money. We've generated a little bit of that, but listen, 9 times out of 10, as long as I can justify what we're looking for and what we're going to do, he's a big softy at heart, trust me.
You could have just said that was the reason you stayed, Micky. Forget
No.
the last couple of minutes of the season.
No, so I might need to come to you in January. But no, so yeah, the board have been really good in terms of, they want to push forward as well, do you know what I mean? So, and we know we're restricted on certain things, but, there's certain things that we can do and, we will do and make better as we're going along.
I think from the board's point of view, we've got a great working relationship with Micky. We set out our parameters in terms of budgets and so on and so forth, and Micky's worked wonders in working within those budgets. He's open with us, we're open with him, and I just think it's worked really well, and I was particularly keen, well all the board were particularly keen to get Micky to stay, and unfortunately we persuaded him to do that, and he agreed, so we were delighted. It was in the past it's always been difficult to compete with Forest Green because of their financial resources, but as we said at the beginning, it's not always all about finance, and we've got other things that we can offer. Fortunately for us, Micky found those qualities in our club attractive enough to stay with us, and we've got trust in him, and he has a good deal of autonomy in what he does, and I think altogether that was the deal that worked for us all.
And presumably from the player's point of view, from your point of view, Wade, that continuity it must have been a huge boost when Mick made that decision.
The players hate him, can't get him. They want big contracts done. No, it was
But
great
it's
for me.
after an hour's worth then, can't
No, I was pleased he stayed. So from my perspective, there's the day-to-day stuff. There's loads of stuff that Micky takes off my plate and allows me to concentrate on being around the players and being on the training ground. So no, I'm delighted that he stayed.
And just, is it a personal thing with Mick that you rate him so much, or is it just financial really? What is it?
Well, Micky's the one who asked me to come to this tonight, so maybe I don't mind if you don't want to sit now. But no, it's obviously the work is there to see at the club what he's done, and hopefully he continues doing, and everyone's delighted that he's still there now.
Yes. Okay, I've got 3 questions, 1 for Wade and 2 for David. I stand behind the paddock, and Exeter game was a pretty low really, and I think I ended up texting David at half-time. Since then, I've noticed a dramatic change in terms of back office coaching staff. I just wondered if you could actually outline the role of Marcus and the coaching support, because to be quite frank with you, I've been really impressed with the back office, I call it back office coaching, because I can see the improvements since the Exeter game in terms of the communication, not necessarily Wade, but the other coaches in terms of in play on match day. It's been kind of really encouraging. Okay, the results haven't been 100% every time, but I can really see the dramatic enthusiasm from your back office team. I know that you stand aloof to that, and I can understand that you're stood kind of watching the game, but I can really see some quite dramatic changes really on that. So that's the one question for Wade. The others are really concentrating on corporately, and whether you mentioned that Forest Green Rovers financial situation.
I'm a shareholder, and I know there's issues with Paul and David, the other David, in terms of shareholding. I just wondered really whether we should really be looking at a corporate shareholding share issue to fans. I know we're sat here with a football trust and everything else like that. I've not joined the football trust because I'm not much more about shares in the company, in the company, I'm saying company, because that's the way I sort of think really. In order to progress, I would kind of encourage a share issue from the club to see what's out there in terms of the shareholdings that could possibly be going forward. And then the third question is Cheltenham ladies. They don't play at Warwick Road, well I call it Warwick Road. In terms of they're playing at Cirencester, I just wondered if there were, can David give an outline as to whether there's, in view of the national profile of ladies football right across the country in terms of that, whether that's a possibility for next season.
Should we start with Marcus and changes to the...
In terms of, yeah, so it's ended up being, we've had quite a big churn in staff. So it's ended up being a new staff. We've got a new analyst. We've also got a new goalie coach in now, Bits. Plus Marcus has come in to, I suppose Marcus has taken over my role. So on the coaching side, there's also in South, Marcus, Russ, and Bits, the goalie coach. I think it's a good staff. I think it covers a lot of skill sets, a lot of areas. So Bits has come in with a really good CV. I think the work he's doing with the goalies, the 3 goalkeepers that we've got has been very good. Russ, you all know. So Russ is really personable. He's great getting around the lads. He's been doing the job for 14 years. So there's not many scenarios or situations that Russ hasn't seen. So for me, Russ is a really good sounding board. Go pick his brains, what do you think about this? Not just tactically, but things that come up day to day. In terms of Marcus, obviously me and Russ are more forward-thinking players. I think what we're good at as a staff, we can come up with a game plan structurally, and we can set the team up, the 11 tactically, to how we want the defensive shape to look. What me and Michael dovetailed really well is I could go in and set the detail up, set the team, but Michael was great on the lived experience being centre half. So Michael could go and have a conversation with Duffo about, we're playing Sam Vokes at the weekend. So he could go in and say, Sam Vokes is going to do this, but this is how you use your body, and this is the dark arts, and this is... So that's what we've replicated with Marcus. Marcus he was a defender, so he had a really good career. He can come in and he can give that detail to the likes of Lonnie and Caleb. He's also got good experience, so he's done a multitude of jobs. He's at all different levels. His most recent job was in the FA in the England setup. But in a similar way to Russ, he's got a lot of experience, so he's a good platform for me to bounce ideas off. And he can set up in the mic, he can set up in the stand on the mic, where you do get a completely different view of the game. So I used to sit up there, and you can see all 22 players moving around the pitch. You can see the shape, you can see the pattern, and he feeds information down to the bench. So I think from where we started in pre-season, so literally it was me and Russ, to the point we're at now, bedding in a new staff, bedding in a new team, understanding the way that each other works, understanding what our skill sets are, and how we can dovetail and complement each other. I do think we're, as a staff, I think we're growing stronger the more time we spend with each other.
David, first of all, the share idea.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly what point you're asking there. Are you asking whether or not the club would be prepared to issue more shares so that people could? Well, the answer
what's out there really in terms of what potential other, whether there's money out there in terms of what money could be put into the club. Really.
Yeah, well, we'd always be open to any serious investor coming in and buying some shares in the club. We're very fortunate in as much as we've got senior shareholders who always support us but never interfere, if I could use it that way. They keep an eye on the club, they want good governance, they want financial improvements, but they don't interfere in any way. They come and watch us from time to time, some of them quite regularly, some of them not so regularly. Certainly the board have not been made aware that any of them want to divest themselves of their shareholding.
They do get the club, to be fair.
Sorry?
Those guys do get the club.
Yeah, absolutely.
They really do get
yeah,
it.
they completely do get the club. I mean, we had a guy last year who came along and put a bit of money in and had a few shares issued to him. And certainly if there was any approach from a serious investor who had the right values for our club, absolutely, I'm sure that those shareholders would welcome some help, if you like, in terms of financial investment, and the board would absolutely be delighted to see some more money flowing into the club. So the answer is yeah, a share issue is something that would be perfectly, we'd be perfectly open to.
Yeah, so if you've got your credit card with you, we'll talk something out. That's not a problem.
I was just thinking really about the fan base there. It's growing, and I just think that that's a possibility in terms of the support. Okay, you've got football, you've got trust and everything. So I understand that logic, but on another tangent, there's a fan base there that from all levels. They're not saying like people taking over the club, people are out there to support the club.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't actually know the numbers we've got Paul Godfrey here tonight, but we've got a large number of shareholders. Obviously, we've got 4 shareholders who hold probably 75–80% of the shares in the club, but there's a massive number of individual shareholders who some hold a handful of shares.
34, I think. 34, I think you said in the accounts.
34, right? Well, you're I think there are more. In total, the number of shareholders is probably rather larger than that. That those might be ones over a certain number, I suspect. But yeah, I mean, it's the fans' club, and we're open to serious investment.
And what about the women's team?
Yeah, as far as the ladies' team is concerned, we're very pro the ladies' team. We're happy to support it, but I have to say we're not particularly. Feel that we're in a position at the moment to let them play at Wadden Road too often. First of all, the ground's from Lavinetti, because Matt loves his pitch and he spends absolutely a vast amount of work trying to keep it as good as it is, and I think we'd all agree that the pitch is a credit to him. I know that he was absolutely tearing his hair out when the Alpha Church fans were running all over the one half, and that upset him quite a bit. So we try to limit it. I think the current board is always sort of got conscious in their minds of the Gloucester experience when we were playing too much football on that pitch, and it affects the way we can play, and it affects the standard of what we do. So we have really sort of, it's nothing against the ladies' teams, but we have been reluctant to allow any more games to be played on there. I'm sure we probably will have 1 or 2 in the future, at prudent times of the season when perhaps the pitch isn't under too much stress, but at the moment we don't feel that it's something that we want to do on a regular or sort of just accepted basis.
Have you spoken to the women's setup? How are they kind of, we want to play at Wadden, or are they, because there's definitely an argument for saying if you're going to get 200, maybe 300 people come and watch you, you're actually better at Cirencester than you would be at Wadden. It can be quite dispiriting. You go to these Premier League grounds where, and okay, if Man United play Man City or Arsenal play Tottenham, you might get 20–25,000. Play Reading, play West, you get sort of 3–4,000, and it's actually quite a dispiriting thing where you'll sell out your regular ground. I just wonder how they feel about that.
I know that they would like to play some more at Wadden Road, and I've had conversations with their manager. Go out for a drink with them from time to time and try to understand what their ambitions are. And I'm very pro the ladies' game. I prefer watching men's football, if I'm totally honest. But you know, when we all saw the women winning the Euros in the summer, it's given a real sort of spur to that game. And it's something which is growing and growing. And you know, I'd like Cheltenham Town to have a really good ladies team. And what we can do within reason, we will do. But at the moment, playing on the pitch isn't one of those things. But certainly, there's mutual cooperation, and I'm happy to continue to advance that.
Yes, so I'm just going to make a point about investment to the guy about the trust. I appreciate that you want to make your own investment, but the best way, I think, certainly to invest in Cheltenham Town is to become part of an ownership group, and I think David will appreciate that we've got a good working relationship, trust in the club now. We feel we can say things to you, you can say things to us, and we will be respected. We are the fourth largest shareholder. With the government's fan review of football coming in, there are things like golden shares and shadow boards that are going to be put forward that the trust would be in a position to occupy. So hopefully supporter, if not supporter ownership, then supporter involvement in clubs at our level is going to get very real in the near future. So that's why it's important to have a strong trust, and the stronger the trust can be, reflectively, the club can be stronger because we're investing all the time, and we can have a real, as Tom said, we are all here, we are all part of the club, but we can have a real say in our club through the trust. The stronger our voice is, the stronger the fans' voice in the club is as well.
But at the moment, that's restricted to one director.
It is restricted to one director at the moment, but we're always willing to put more than one director at David.
Yes, any more for any more?
Why wasn't we allowed to stop on Saturday evening?
Why weren't we allowed, stop overnight?
No, stop till you put up.
Okay. What, on the coach?
Yeah. Because the state people find you to put up. We've had this conversation. What you said you'll get back to me and you got to look.
Well, I got off the supporters coach on Saturday evening after a long journey home, and I was approached by Lady.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I think that it's probably not a question that I really want to discuss within this forum. I spoke to June, I think it is, isn't it, about it. There are conflicting issues about that. There is a loo on the coach, and there's a lot of fans, as however many travel to each game. Some of them are not in favour of stopping, they want to get home after the game, and there are some who do want it to stop. So have to take a balanced view on it. We stopped on the way up to Ipswich, we didn't stop on the way back, and you know, I think if you took a straw poll on the coach of what we did, you would get more in favour of the way that it went than didn't.
That's not being fair to the disabled people, though, is it?
Well, I'm not going to get drawn into a discussion on that in this forum, but you know, that's the reason.
Yeah, question over here.
I was going to say, we've probably been in our strongest position in terms of vision as a club in the back room, and obviously success breeds success on that. How are we balancing risk and reward in terms of the playing age of our squad? It's obviously gone down recently, the average, if you look at our playing squad. We've lost some of the more experienced players, Toes has left. We're obviously to overindulge with it. I think players like, if we look in the past, we sold Moisa, then we got really overexcited on bringing in players to try and sell. Kalala, Adai. How do we get to over-invested in that and not bringing more experience to the playing squad?
Okay, yeah, good question. So, last season we sat down as a staff, obviously Michael was present then, obviously. We looked at our squad, because it was quite an ageing squad last season. So what we looked at was...
Apart from Longy, obviously.
But no, in terms of we lost, I think we said we lost something roughly, don't quote me, around about 2,000 to 2,500 games experience, okay? So what we knew that we
they usually go in cycles. So we were at the end of what you'd call our 2-year cycle. So if we go back to Northampton, 2-0 lose 3-2, we sat down and said, okay, what do we need to do better next year? So we thought that on that day we probably needed a little bit more experience. We went and signed Liam Sercombe, Andy Williams, Matty Blair. All three of them all had promotions, and we thought that was the right thing to do at that time. So we looked at who we were potentially going to lose last season, and we thought, obviously, we knew we were going to lose Will Boyle, and we accepted that. We knew that 12 months before, so it was a decision: do we cash in on him, or do we keep him for League One? We shake him by the hand, give him a big cuddle, wish him all the best. We took that decision because we thought that was the right thing to do. But then when you look at the experienced players, we just thought this is now the next cycle. So I think we signed 12 players in the summer. We signed one over 25, which was Ryan Jackson.
And what a signing, by the way.
And to be fair to Ryan, again, Ryan was signed by default. Okay, so nothing against Ryan, but we signed Ryan because we had a very good player had to retire, who'd been really good for us. So, you know, we were talking to Ryan because we thought that might happen, but all the rest, we knew we needed a little bit more youth, legs, energy, you know, that little bit of, we've got a variation, so you've got James Oliinka, dribble and driver. Do you know what I mean? You've got Dan Adched who can run. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, and we knew, but when we say we knew, we had a plan in place for Lewis Freestone's been here for, you know, I hear a lot of people talk about Lewis and over the years, this, that and the other. You know, the plan's been in place that we knew Will Boyle was going to go and Lewis would step in. So we've gone down that route in terms of a little bit of more youth, yes, definitely. But we can't be on that cycle every year of, you know, Ben Williams, Will Ferry, of getting 30, 31, 32, 33. And the one thing I think that we have done well up to this stage is when we have let a player go, we've let him go because we've maxed out on that player. On common denominator, they all went back to League Two. Not one stayed at League One. That was nothing against them, but they went to that level. We've kind of we maxed them now, and we just think now we're on this new cycle in terms of young, and a lot we spoke about bumps in the road, but we feel we've got a really talented group, a real talent. You know, in terms of Longy's 27, he's classed as experienced and old, you know. But he'll tell you that he's in the prime of his life now. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. So you're right in terms of we have got to get that balance, definitely, and we will look at that, especially going into the future windows. We are conscious of it. We had to make that decision in the summer, and we felt it was the right thing to do for where we are right here, right now.
Got one in here which I think has been sent in advance.
Yes, I think this is one for David. This was submitted in advance today from someone who couldn't be here. Can we expect to hear any news of development of the training facilities for income generation for the club?
In terms of seasons, well, we all know that the club has acquired the freehold interest in that, and that's obviously taken a lot of effort and a certain amount of financial resource. The answer is that we did that because it gives us security of that training facility. We were on a rolling lease there, which could have been brought to an end on 12 months' notice, and we obviously wanted to ensure that we had security for the training facility. The answer is we would love to invest in the training ground. We would love to do things that will generate more income down there. We probably can't do that immediately, and certainly, you know, there are other things that we have to balance investments against because, you know, one road probably needs a little bit of money spending on it as well. We'd like to do something there, and there's only a limited amount of money that we've got at the moment, unless we have some wonderful windfall or some fantastic investors who come along and accept these share offers. So we have to do it bit by bit, but the answer is yes. In the medium term, probably I'd say. We would like to do things at the training ground which will generate income. Probably in the short term, what we're going to be able to do is to maintain the facility smarten it up, make it a bit nicer for the kids that go down there. If you go down on a Saturday or a Sunday, it's buzzing with youngsters, which is great. Make it so that it's nice for the academy, and obviously retain the standards so that we can attract decent players when they come for loans or whatever, and they see it and they think, well, this is a nice tidy place. So I think maintenance and a little bit of money on it, but in the short term, but in the medium term, certainly we'd like to do more to get, for example, a 3G pitch or something like that down there, and to really make it the next level up.
Just to add into that one as well. So you talked about the academy earlier on as well. In terms of the training ground, and talks about 3Gs, etc. I think it's all part of a bigger plan, a bigger project that the club and the board and we're all trying to do. If you go to an academy, there are 5 every night of the week. They're a different school. Okay, so they train different Astros, different 3Gs. We've got a great link with All Saints, but they're training at a school around the town, around the county. Now, ultimately, long mid-term project is to get that 3G seasons. Won't necessarily generate too much in terms of revenue generation, but what it will do is it helps to enhance what we offer as a club. When you talk about academy, we talk about Will Armitage, how do we grow those, how do we continue to invest in those. That 3G is massive, because it then starts behind our academy can be one venue, our training ground every night of the week. We can then start to develop classrooms and seasons, and start to enhance and bridge that gap between the first team and the academy. And that's part of the project of why obviously acquiring the seasons was so valuable to us and so big to us. As David said, it's not going to happen overnight. We haven't got a model that Forest Green have got where their owner can just decide what he wants to do. We have to invest, we have to grow, we have to sell Will Armitage again, and then we can start to invest in certain areas. But it's all part of that bigger thinking. The Mickey and the club and the board will joining together in terms of growing that and getting the seasons. As David alluded to, it took us best part of a year, didn't it, from start to finish. It took a long time. Not longer than I think we all went into those meetings expecting it to take. But it's so valued, and I can't express how important that it is. It's not going to change overnight, but it allows that longer term thinking of getting that asset. And then at some stage, if we do get a Man City in 2 years' time, 1 year's time, we can then start to look at, can we get a 3G? A 3G that we can use more in-house than external, just to continue to develop that academy and that arm of the club.
Great. Are we just about there? Good? Yes? Very good. I think everybody's looking extremely thirsty. Just to round off, obviously, and I like to it'd be nice to be able to finish on something that's kind of quite grand and looking at the longer term vision, about where the club's headed for in future. So, just finally, for me, what's the team Saturday? what we doing?
We get double out tomorrow.
Fair enough. So you've moved on from the little screwed up piece of paper in the hand. Okay, good. Hey, look, great to see you. Of course, absolutely best of luck Saturday for the rest of the season. Hopefully there'll be a few more Ipswich towns and no Alf churches. Well, there won't be any more Alf churches. We're concentrating on the league now, aren't we? Apart from Papa John's. Will you please put your hands together? Sean Long.